So we've seen a lot of different ideas. I'm curious, what is your stance on the idea of defunding police departments, and what impact would that have to cities and police response?
So I'm looking here because on my desk is our City of Atlanta budget. This is a pretty thick book. And I think that a very simplified message is defund the police. But I think the overarching theme is that people want to see a reallocation of resources into community development and alternatives to just criminalizing responses to behavior. So I think it's incumbent upon us to help people articulate that frustration. And so even when I look at our budget, the vast majority of our police budget goes to salary, pensions, workers' compensation, capital improvements. But we've cut our corrections budget by 60%, and we are allocating that funding specifically to help with the conversion of our jail to a center of equity, health, and wellness. So on the surface, it may look like, oh, you just need to slash your police budget. But when in reality, if you want those services and you're getting them, you're just getting them from somewhere else in our budget. And I think we just have to be very careful simplifying a message that comes in the form of a document that's this big, when we start talking about city budgets.
A lot of people have early voted already, or sent in their ballots. Do you expect the momentum of the protests to carry into the election season, starting with this primary election and moving into November?
I certainly do. I know that it at least appears to have been a high turnout. I haven't seen the numbers yet for early voting. The turnout was steady. I know a lot of precincts were consolidated because of COVID. And if anything, I think that we've got to get this right for the election in November, because we're going to see a lot of people turning out to vote. And it's going to be unacceptable for people to have to stand in line for 6 to 8 hours like we saw in some Fulton County precincts. So hopefully the lessons from this election, we can tweak, or Fulton County and the various counties can tweak what needs to be done going into the November election. But I think that people are motivated, and I certainly think that's going to carry over past tomorrow.
Mayor Bottoms, I think the dinner conversations at your house are far more exciting than at my house, because when you are on the short list and reported to be on a list of potential vice presidential candidates for Joe Biden, that would be some interesting dinner conversation. What is it like to have your name in those conversations?
Well, the reality is that we live in a country with 330 plus million people. So to have your name spoken in that light, it is a big deal. And I'm honored to have my name spoken in that way. But the reality is, the city of Atlanta has given me more on my plate than I can say grace over. Um, COVID, on top of running the city, was already a really big deal. And the events over the almost past 2 weeks, on top of COVID, on top of running the city, it's a lot to occupy my time with. So I appreciate that my name is spoken in that regard, and it remains to be seen what happens.
I This might feel like a very general question, Mayor, but from where you stand, where do we go from here?
I think it's incumbent upon us to articulate that. And very interestingly enough, last night, my 9-year-old son found Selma, the movie, on television, and made us all stop and watch it. And what struck me really was the organization of the civil rights movement, and this unified voice and call for change. So much has changed about who we are as a country, even how our messages are amplified, whether it be social media, print, or broadcast, etc. And so I don't know if we even have the ability to have one voice to amplify a message, but I do think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to help as best we can people articulate what it is that they want to see. And it's really interesting when I went out into the protest last week and someone said, walk with us. And I said, and then someone said, where are we going? I said, that is the question. Where are we going? And I think, at least on behalf of the city of Atlanta, we are going to convene a group to try and help us articulate that. And if it is something that's done nationwide, I think it's great. But if nothing else, we will at least do it on behalf of our communities. But in the same way that Dr. King and so many others, between Alabama and right here in Atlanta and in Georgia, began a movement that changed the nation, I think that calling is still upon us.